Dear students, in the last lectures, we discussed about resonant converters, SLR, its detail analysis, zero voltage and zero current switching, and the aspect of resonance frequency and operating frequency and its relation. Now, rest of the part of this unit, particularly though it's not a resonant converter, but it is all about EMI, EMC, protection circuits, heating and cooling arrangements. So let's start with EMI. Then we'll discuss about overvoltage and overcurrent conditions and remedies on that. And then this will be the last part of the syllabus. So when I say it's a EMI, which is very popular word in electronics as well as in real life. In electronics means for us, for electronics engineers, it's the electromagnetic interference. For others, it's the installment. Means anyway, we have to pay. We pay for interference, people pay for loans. So electromagnetic interference or EMI is in any way, maybe in engineering life or in social life, is hazardous, it's difficult to handle and so on. So just jokes apart, but how EMI is generated and what it is, whether it's a noise, it's not, because it is generated out of some process which is predefined and having its defined expected output. But the radiations generated out of it or its magnetic field, its electric field is affecting others, because every conductor can be modeled as RLGC transmission line we discussed. So it has some parameters which are in conductive environment as well as in radiative. This radiation naturally generates the interference. And this interference is particularly dominant when you do have high voltage source near to low voltage source. Low voltage source is always getting affected because the noise or distortion or radiation from high voltage source is bigger than the amplitude of low voltage source sometimes. But in electronics engineering, we always say that frequency is hazardous rather than the amplitudes, because we always deal with the low voltage but high frequency circuits. So for us, the sources from where major electromagnetic interference is generated is the communication device itself. Means it is most susceptible to electromagnetic interference, as well as it is the most prominent system, most prominent devices, those who generate the electromagnetic interferences, electromagnetic radiations. Vehicle traffic generates electromagnetic interference. Then you may have a question how your generation is fortunate enough that you haven't experienced that distortion in television sets, old CRT sets, where if a vehicle is passing by the home and that distortion was directly affecting, you are getting that sound in television and one has to adjust the antenna, this and that. But now in the digital transmission era, that everything is no more dominant. Heavy machineries, high voltage AC equipment still are major source of the EMI. MRI machines, big machines with 1.5 and up to 3 Teslas of radiations are very heavy sources of EMI for the devices, circuits, as well as for the human being. And above all, the sun is the biggest source of electromagnetic radiation. So whether we should hide everything from sun and do in night, no. There are ways and means to tackle it. So how EMI is affecting our life and life of the devices or say setups and circuits is it adversely affect any or all applications which is examining electrical properties of samples, components and devices. Because when we are examining or testing something, we are interested in steady state, transient state, and point-to-point analysis of that particular device or circuit. But when a EMI source is affecting it, it naturally affecting the characteristics also. For them, it is a hazard signal. Next is application, those who are using electromagnetic fields for sensing. They are also getting affected due to EMI noise. And MRI and functional MRI and electro microscopy or traveling electron microscopes are again getting affected from the electromagnetic interference generated out of their systems, as well as generated out power line disturbances or other sources of interference. Variable EMI is more dangerous because if you do have a constant level, a source, and known frequency, etc., then it's quite easy to filter it out or to block it to reduce the effect. But in case of variable, your devices, those who are blocking or dealing with the EMI, has also been adaptive, which is more challenging. And this variable EMI, electromagnetic interference, degrade the repeatability of measurement, because when EMI was present, you get one reading. When there was no electromagnetic interference, you get a better reading, but you don't know which one is better. So it is affecting the repeatability or let us say precision of the system and device. So if this EMI is having these effects, we should have some solutions for it. But in order to build solutions, we face some hurdles first, some challenges first. EMI, as it's unknown, it's not known a priori, so it is very hard to detect and difficult to distinguish whether it's a signal or whether it's a noise. Because as I said, it's not a noise. It's a signal only, but generated from some other source, which you are not measuring, which you are not testing. So first I have to identify, and if the frequency of radiation means EMI and the operating band for which you operate are same, then again it is too tough. So sources of EMI are generally present at the point of installation only. SNPS, it's one major source of electromagnetic interference, but you are using it in every setup. So in the setup itself, you create a system or you use a system which generates EMI. Means our system itself is generating EMI and we are trying to tackle with it. So it's bigger challenge because it's in-house. It's not a foreign element or foreign particle. It's in-house particle. So to eliminate it is more dangerous. More difficult. This is caused by electromagnetic fields. It can stretch from one location to another location, even in meters and few hundreds of meters also. If you do have some testing lab in the next building and they're testing something, it may have effect on your setup. A helicopter or a chopper plane passing over your building will generate a EMI in your system for that moment. So it's too difficult because the nature is variable, the sources are unknown, and the characteristics even are unknown. So with these challenges, we start building solutions. While building solution, the simplest is the source of EMI turned off. But this is quite possible when you are doing some small experiment and you ask your colleague, okay, you just switch off your system for hours time, I will complete my testing and then you start. This is quite possible, but not practicable solution. Because in practice, you cannot do it. This is quite good for a small setup or a laboratory where one at a time can work. But if you are thinking about having this permanently, it's not possible solution. Then another is they should be distant apart, the source of EMI and the test instruments or a laboratory setup. This is some way better than the first solution because both can work. Then the third, shield your instrument so that whatever electromagnetic noise coming, it will first attack on your cabinet, shield it, make it ground because ground or earth is such a big conductor that it absorbs everything and the potential is lower naturally than any other signal. So it will get grounded because that is the easiest or least resistance path to get grounded because every signal needs a ground path, a return path. So shield your instrument, have a ground. This is very reason that we do have shielding and grounding in almost all the instruments. If you are working in electronics industry or you are testing something which is more important and your signals are of a small amplitude and you want that electromagnetic noise or interference should not create any interference in your setup, then construct a Faraday cage. It's like a cube, a hollow cube. Uh, has five sides closed and you just have one side open for your setup to push in and then again put that Faraday's cage or put it over so that what will happen, all the surroundings EMI interferences will get to the Faraday's cage and Faraday's cage is always grounded. So it is the better way to put a Faraday's cage around your instrument and dissipate all stray magnetic fields through this Faraday's cage. This is again same to move your setup. And the better is study the EMI and deploy active EMI cancellation, active EMI filters, HF filters in your system so that all high frequency and EMI noises can be, EMI interferences can be. This is how we work with EMI and EMC, and this is what expected. EMI EMC studies are again more deeper in electromagnetic theories as well as variation technologies from the perspective point of the communication circuits. Here we dealt with EMI just for to avoid the power line disturbances and heavy electromagnetic interferences for the control circuits. So now let's move ahead to the protection circuits for overvoltage. Overvoltage is very frequent situation occurs in a system because when you turn on a power source, a major power source, there is very high inrush current as well. The voltage is high. This is one reason. Another reason it is due to internal cause of the system because initially always a transient gets generated and then it settles and damped that overshoot get dampened. Might have studied the Pearl's theory, which says that it will first get overshooted, then down, then slowly comes to a level which is desired. This is how it happens. Means if you want to just check out any circuit, signal starts with like if you study the Pearl's, it is like this, this, and like this. This is the pulse amplitude, and this is a peak overshoot. This point is a peak overshoot in the circuit. So overshoot is around 30 to 50% of this amplitude also. Though it's momentary, but during that moment, it can destroy something. So capacitor energizing is again the reason for voltage. And overvoltage is generated due to external causes also, like lightning. You might have heard this many times that due to a heavy lightning in certain area, TV sets or electronic appliances like microwaves and fridge and other things are got either power supply destroyed or the whole appliance got stayed, etc. Because it's amounting in kilovolts, though it's momentarily, but that kilovolts and megavolts damage your device very fast. Because direct lightning strokes between the cloud and ground, the voltage becomes 5 million volts. Just consider it, the value. Just try to plot it. 5 million volts. And the potential gradient means the time that lightning stroke takes to get to ground. If you calculate the gradient, it becomes 5K to 10K volt per centimeter. So this is a huge, huge source, that lightning. That's why we do have lightning arresters on all buildings, laboratories, offices, so that whenever there is a lightning attack, that lightning arrestor generally like of a wide size you might have seen on buildings. It is like this, so that it will attract. This is usually a copper and metal arrangement, and then it is directly grounded. And this is always on top of the building, and this wire is running from side wall to, so that, but not in direct contact, protected by some insulating pipe and all that, or a hollow pipe, so that it will not touch anywhere. And it is directly grounded, so that this stroke voltage, this over voltage, will be directly grounded and building is protected. Over voltages are also produced by electromagnetic inductions and electromagnetic interferences. Apart from that, some atmospheric changes are also conducting the electromagnetic interference across the power line. Then these categories of these over voltages are temporary over voltages or some long-term voltages. Surge and sags are sudden over voltages, but they don't stand for a long time. They are always of a short duration, so called as surge. And surge suppressors, MOVs, are managing these attacks due to surge. Switching impulses or switching of the load, typically heavily inductive loads again generate an impulse which is temporarily over voltage. And how it affects, it may damage the complete circuit. It may generate a spark between the live wire and the ground, phase and ground, and generates a breakdown in the insulations. Typically, if insulation is tested at 1 kV or 10 kV and surge or the temporary over voltage is beyond that, it may damage your insulation. The easier ways to protect are having the earthing screen, surge arresters, surge suppressors, lightning arresters, overhead earth wire, like you might have seen. Along with the transmission lines, there is one metal wire just running, which is not carrying the power line, but it is on top. It is for the purpose that whenever any lightning stroke occurs, it should not get in direct contact with the power line. Otherwise, power line will carry that voltage to the appliances, which happens in some cases, and we hear it through news. So that overhead earth wire is protecting all such areas in which it is working, so in which it is running, so that it gets that lightning stroke attracted, pass it through tower to directly to ground. And if anything is passed to ground, then that is the least resistance path, so other circuits are getting. This is how we generally protect the over voltage, and sudden over voltage in circuits, these numbers are deployed for that. So we do have protection relays also, um, like some current sensors, Hall effect sensors in CDs and Hall effect sensors. Then relay compares the sensor outputs with some upper limit, and which allows switch on is either open or closed as per the configuration. And even you can set these relays on some limits that if this limit is exceeded, trip the switch or MCB, etc., on a particular delay or instant. But generally, a delay is introduced in order to turn off the particular circuit. And next is overcurrent protection. Overcurrent is very dangerous. Though current flows when there is a potential gradient, but when overcurrent is flowing, it carries is trying to damage the tracks, damage the power line, and damage the components, permanent damage to the component because it is breaking the junctions. Overcurrent is breaking the junctions. So discrimination is important when you are using this high power, high voltage area. Then these protection circuits must be flexible as per the requirement and operating conditions. So use a CT, fault current sensors, separate protection relay, etc. And MCBs can be tripped superfluous and MCBs. So the types of MCBs we will have is type B, C, and D. Then B is magnetic strips, which is rated 3 to 5 times. C is 5 to 10 times, and D is 10 to 20 or even 50 times for the rated currents. And this we usually install at the power line distribution areas, which are carrying currents from mains to our labs, offices, classrooms, industry, etc. Then, along with MCB, we do have MCCB, miniature circuit breakers, air circuit breakers, and all that, so that our circuits, systems, and other loads gets protected from the temporary over voltages and overcurrents. This is all we have to take care about the circuits and the systems. So just go through this material, revise it, and complete it. Thank you for your patience listening, and wish you all the best for studies and exams. Thank you.